As we look around today and we see creation just bursting forth in bloom, we're reminded, Father, that you are the great creator and that you also burst forth on Easter morning for us, and we thank you for that. We just pray, Father, as we do business here for our city, that you would give us wisdom, that you would give us discernment, that you would give us humility, that you would help us to all respect one another and do what's best for our city. And we are so thankful that we live in a free city that operates in the principles of democracy. Just bless the words of our mouth and the meditations of our heart. Let it all be pleasing to you tonight. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Please join us in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. You may be seated. Don't see Miss Mary Hammond here yet, so we'll call them up if they...
calling me and I didn't know why.
Oh, that's probably why. So we'll skip ahead. We have a proclamation tonight that Mr. Jim Pollard has asked us to do. And I'm going to read it, sir, and then would you guys like to make some comments, or it's up to you? Okay, all right.
Mary is on her way.
Okay, thank you. All right. Whereas there are approximately 2.1 million Americans living with limb loss difference, and whereas over 500 Americans lose a limb every day, and whereas approximately 1,000 babies are born each year in the United States with congenital limb difference, and whereas diabetes and peripheral vascular disease are the leading causes of limb loss, followed closely by trauma, and whereas studies show up to 60% of limb loss is preventable, and whereas it is estimated that the number of amputations per day will double by 2050 unless a major public awareness campaign is launched and key prevention initiatives are put in place. And whereas the Amputee Coalition provides education, outreach, support, and advocacy through the National Limb Loss Resource Center for the benefit of persons with limb loss or difference, their families, and healthcare providers. Now therefore, I, Brandy Harless, Mayor of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2019 as National Limb Loss Awareness Month in the City of Paducah, and I encourage all citizens to join in recognizing the importance of this month and celebrate people affected by limb loss and limb difference, living full and productive lives, learn about issues affecting people with limb loss, express gratitude to family and caregivers who are a source of support and motivation, and salute combat and veteran amputees who have lost their limbs in service to this country. Hear, hear. Thank you, Jim, for being here. Would you guys like to come up to the podium and make a few comments?
Yeah, I got it. I just want to thank everyone for making this aware. You don't realize until you become an amputee how many people lose a limb a day. 500 a day is a big number when you think about it. And we have a lot in our area, and I just want to thank you for making this proclamation, and thank all of the amputees and their caregivers. Caregivers are very important in this, as they are in most situations like this. So we just want to thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring this to you, okay? And thank you, Commissioner Watkins, for bringing this to our attention.
Yes, ma'am, Mayor.
Got your Santa Claus red suit on, I see. You got your Santa red suit on.
Right, thank you. Yeah.
Here, let me actually go have a seat and I'll bring this over there.
Okay, thank you.
So now I recognize your name and why Valerie's here.
There you go. Do you want to step? We're done.
Can I hand this to you?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you again.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, we'll go on into business, and then we might have to push pause when Mary Hammond gets here with her special guest. All right, we're going to move into the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, I didn't ask you if there are any additions or deletions. I probably should start that.
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're going to move into the consent agenda. All right, let's see. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed. Does anyone have anything they need to remove tonight? No? All right. I'll ask the city clerk to read the items recommended for approval, please.
Minutes for the March 12, 2019 City Commission meeting, receive and file documents, personnel actions, and municipal order adopting an amendment to the fiscal year 2018-2019 pay grade schedule for the employees of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, a municipal order authorizing an application for a National Park Service Historic Revitalization Subgrant through the Department of the Interior in an amount of $750,000 to establish a subgrant program in Paducah and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same. The municipal order amending municipal order number 2185 entitled a municipal order accepting grant funds through the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, KOHS, for a fiscal year 18 state Homeland Security grant in the amount of $63,500 for the purchase of bomb suits for the Paducah Police Department and authorizing the mayor to execute the grant agreement and all documents related to same, to change the scope of said grant to include the purchase of tactical body armor carriers, body armor plates, and medical kits, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same. A municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute an application for a 2018-2019 matching insurance services safety grant in an amount of $3,000 through the Kentucky League of Cities for reimbursement for Human Resources Department personnel attendance at the KLC Safety Conference and staff training, personal protective equipment, and safety signage for the Paducah Parks Department, accepting any grant funds awarded by the KLCIS, and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same. A municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement for fire and rescue services between the City of Paducah, Kentucky, McCracken County, Kentucky, and the Paducah McCracken County Office of Emergency Management to provide services related to fire and rescue services.
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. And this next item of business, I'm actually recusing myself and ask Mayor Pro Tem Abraham if you could take over the meeting, and then I'll go up and present, if that's okay.
Okay. Hang on one second. Okay, this is, I move that a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Approving and Authorizing a Memorandum of Understanding with Brandy Harless and husband Adam Moyer, granting an extension of time until July 31st, 2020, for completing the rehabilitation of real property located at 421 North 5th Street, be adopted."
Second.
Hello. I like standing here, actually. Well, I wanted to take a moment to kind of explain to you all and to the public why we're back in front of you tonight asking you for this extension. And I was thinking about this all week long because it's definitely an uncomfortable thing to ask for, an extension on a project that we wish was finished. It is uncomfortable, but I got to thinking about why we did this in the first place. And many of you might know this story, but when I accidentally moved home to Paducah in 2009, I didn't think I was going to stay here. And thanks to this man who believed in me and wanted to see us invest in Paducah and some other very tragic situations that happened to my family, we chose to invest in Paducah. We chose to stay here. And when we went out on our honeymoon to South Lake Tahoe, we started asking ourselves what were our long-term goals. And those long-term goals included investing in properties, historic properties in Paducah, starting businesses, making a home for ourselves here, running for office possibly, and really investing our time and energy into this community. And so, as you all know, we did that. We did complete a project on Broadway. We spent quite a bit of our own resources, I say love, sweat, and tears, maybe not so much blood, but love, sweat, and tears finishing that project on Broadway. And we, made a miscalculation in asking for that house when we did. But, we're dedicated to it. We've spent almost $30,000 on that house, stabilizing it right away. As soon as you all granted this to me before we were even, I was even the mayor, the commission granted that home to us, we put a new roof on it, we stabilized the brickwork, we made sure that the home was no longer going to be degraded. And so slowly over time, we've kind of put our own labor in to demo the interior. Well, when our project on Broadway finished, and you guys have heard this, it went over budget, and many projects go over budget, and we just had to take a hard look and ask ourselves what's going to have to give. And unfortunately, at the time, that house had to give. Well, luckily, our circumstances have changed, and we have resources available to us. Our family is available now to help us. We have things we didn't have a year ago, and we have submitted a pretty intense timeline to the commission that I hope you'll hold us accountable to, because we want the accountability to be able to maintain our milestones and meet those goals. So I'm just asking, I appreciate ahead of time, but I'm asking if you guys can give us this one more extension so that we can finally finish the last structure of the Lower Town Artistry Rehabilitation Program, and we will do it. So I appreciate you guys. We're here to answer any questions also, and I brought Adam in case you guys had any.
Any comments? Well, the conversation we had when this came up was, okay, is this a precedent, or have other individuals asked for an extension a couple of times? And I reached out to our planning department to find that out. And I think she made some documents available that showed, and sometimes, and a lot of times, we have individuals who take on a project. No one takes on a project to fail. And they need extra time. We haven't been like deadlocked on that time. We want the property developed. We want the neighborhood enhanced. And so with good intentions, we have allowed that. And so for me, you're coming here and you're asking for something that's been done before. And I don't have a problem with a positive vote on that.
Appreciate that.
Can you kind of, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you kind of outline for us the your accountability points, if you will, your milestones, how you laid that out?
Sure, yeah. So we went a little further in asking for the extension because there's always things that we're not going to know about as we get into it. But the plan that we've laid out now is to get the interior structure stabilized now, the interior parts. And so we will finish demo, and then we will start to do the, there's some joists that are old and rotten that need to be replaced. There's some walls that need to come down and be redone, those kinds of things. So our plan is to do all of that and the exterior work by the end of the summer, so that at least the eyesore part of the house is not a problem anymore for the community. And then we can go back inside and start working on the mechanical. I think I'm right about this mostly. Yeah. Electrical, HVAC, those kinds of things can be done during the winter as long as we get the house solid and tight so that there's some opportunity for heating. So I'm hoping that by next spring we'll be doing finish work, and there'll be trims and floors and painting and those kinds of things. And then I'll invite you all over for a dinner party, hopefully in July.
And we can hold you accountable for that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we have any money left.
Well, I appreciated your call to me as well. You came honest and open about what was going on. I really appreciate that, and I think the citizens appreciate that too. I think the accountability is really important, and for all of us, I need accountability. So I think that, if you'll just keep us posted maybe quarterly on what's going on and how things are moving, that would be wonderful. And the other thing I ask myself is, if you weren't the mayor, would I do this? And the answer for me is yes, absolutely, because this is the fastest way for the citizens of Paducah to have a home that is restored and available and looks nice in our city.
I appreciate that.
Commissioner Wilson.
I'll just say, we know you can complete projects. You have completed some very beautiful projects. I toured all 4 of your condos downtown, and they're all very lovely. I know they're all rented, and appreciate the investment you did in downtown. Our goal is to rehab those houses. So I'm very supportive of it, and I do like the accountability. Thank you for coming for us today, and we look forward to seeing the finished product.
Thank you, guys.
And I would just voice support also, and I think a big plus is not just you, but there have been numerous other people in Lower Town who've had extensions also. So if we didn't do it, that would be most unfair, irregardless of your position. So I think it's the right and fair thing to do to move the property forward and get it completed. So appreciate the work y'all are doing and the investment in Paducah. And
Well, I appreciate that.
downtown. And what's the name of your gym? Citizens Gym?
That's great.
Well, and I appreciate you guys talking about that, because one of the first questions that I asked the staff before we even decided to come forward in front of you, we were thinking that we might leave the $30,000 on the table and just walk away, because I didn't want there to be any other option. You know, I didn't want there not to be a precedent. So my first question to the city planner and to the city manager was, is there precedent here? Are we doing something that we would do to anyone? So thank you for making that mention, because I definitely agree with that transparency and that accountability, and I don't want anyone in this community to think that I am asking for something that no one else gets. I don't think that that is a proper position for me to be in. So I appreciate you guys.
Just since she's up behind you, Miss Tamara, could you come and just kind of talk about that process that we mentioned before, just so folks don't understand exactly how that works, or the way we do it here?
Yes, thank you. Commissioners, before you, and I have for the public, if they would like a copy, I have a report from pertaining to the Fountain Avenue project. The mayor's property is in Lower Town, but the projects are very similar. Lower Town was done first. The record keeping and the organization was not quite what we do today, and it was not digitized electronically, so it's all hard copy. And so it is not as easy to research and make a nice table like this for Fountain Avenue. But I wanted to give you Fountain Avenue because it gives you context for what is happening now. And you'll see at the end of this report, on the back page, 4 lines that are highlighted in pink all the way across. Those are the 4 properties that have come to the city and said, we need an extension of time, and they were given an extension of time. The other properties that you see on the front side that have pink in the column here represent the properties that probably should have come and asked for an extension of time, but they were just allowed to finish. We like to be transparent. We like to treat everyone the same. And so that's why now we require people to come forward and do these formal requests, so that we and everyone else knows what's going on, and everyone's above board. In Lower Town, this is the last property. Most of the projects have long finished. It's always tough ending a project, and Lower Town is no different, and we probably have the same situation in Fountain Avenue. But hopefully this will represent the closure of at least the city's role formally in the Lower Town project, and we can move on to another one. If you have any questions at all about the data and any other specifics, I would be very happy to answer them, or at least try to answer them.
Any questions from you all? Thank you, Ms. Tracy.
Certainly.
Ready for a vote?
Ready for the vote?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A few words. I'm like his wife. All right. Did we say hello? Hello. Anita Dixon, everyone. You don't know what kind of special treat we're in for. Here from Kansas City, the UNESCO City of Music. Yeah, right. Mary, you want to come up and introduce her formally? I know I kind of did it already.
Mayor, Commissioners,
What a month we've had. Oh my goodness, celebrating 5 years as a UNESCO Creative City. And it has been chock full of visitors from all over, from Claudia Guerrera from San Antonio, a creative city of gastronomy, and also World Heritage Sites. Our friend Peter from Santa Fe, John Kenyon from Iowa City. We've had 2 artists in residence through the Paducah Arts Alliance, something that we didn't do. This just comes from people meeting and forming projects. 2 artists from Zhengzhou, China. I think I finally know how to pronounce that. One was a potter and one was a brewer. You may have seen in the Paducah Sun about the wonderful collaboration there. And Ben Soleil in a mini residency. And to wind up the month, we have our friend Anita Dixon from Kansas City, the only creative city of music in the United States. And I think we tried to cram too much into today. We're not done yet. So, Anita, please come up.
Hello, Mary. It's good to see you again.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Paducah. I tell Mary, this is my second time here, but our first experience Paducah is when we were a candidate city. And we came down to find, and Paducah set the highest bar as to what a UNESCO city could be. And after that experience, I've been numerous places now and looking around, and you guys continue to set that bar about how high it can be and how important it is. We are beginning our second year as the only United States creative city of music. We have taken it upon ourselves that we are going to share this incredible honor with the rest of the nation. So we're forming partnerships everywhere to bring out the music to make people understand. We just got back from San Cristobal, Mexico, where we discovered that the marimba was an enslavement instrument that was done. When the slaves were taken off the ship, the history is that they pulled the planks off the boats and off the barks of the trees and made music. So these are the things that we're finding out all over the world, but we're also discovering something called the importance of creative economics. When we look around us as human beings, we realize that the only thing that we really have left is the creative ability of each and every individual. So music, gastronomy, crafts and arts, all of those things are now rapidly worldwide becoming how people are sustaining themselves, how they're being able to build businesses and do things around the world with health and clean water and various things. So to share this incredible opportunity with the United States, and particularly Paducah, we always, this woman, I think she thinks in her sleep and wakes up and does this. But I am so thrilled to be a part of this because we have an international turnkey that very few cities in the United States have. And it is our responsibility to continue the collaborations, to continue the opportunities to build creativity as economics. There are no more GMs, there are no more Fords. There are no more opportunities for that. And as we go into this situation, understanding more as creative cities and we share that, then we understand more of our responsibility to humanity. And it's quite undaunting, but thank you very much. I'm looking forward to getting to the Freight House tonight. So I saved myself.
What time? What time is that?
I saved myself for tonight. So.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you very much. It's good seeing you.
Anita, can I ask you? Well, I got to tell you 2 things. One thing is that our assistant city manager is a Kansas Cityan native.
Yeah.
Michelle Smolin back there. So you need to meet her before you leave here. And I'm just sitting here thinking that I wonder if she knows the depth of the music history of Kansas City. And I'm wondering if you'll just share a little bit with us
Always
about.
love to do that.
I know you do, so I'm interested if you would share that a little bit.
Actually, Kansas City is considered to be one of the 4 pillars of the creation of jazz in America. And we occupy the longest time, meaning to say that after the turn of the 20th century, that in 1917, something called Local 627, or the Colored Musicians Union, was established by the American Federation of Musicians. The building is still there. And those musicians with the name of Count Basie and Duke Ellington and Mary Lou Williams and Lester Young and all those actually occupied that building. So, and after 100 years, the strength of our application for UNESCO was virtually that we have the ability to teach humanity that the beginnings of this music came from someplace and was transported over here to where it became swing in America. So everything that comes from the basis of that was our application. But the history of jazz is so storied and so international now that we have actually started something called the American Music Apprenticeship Program. When we were trying to get into understand more about the economics of creativity and utilizing jazz and preservation, we found out that the Department of Labor did not recognize musicians as an apprenticeable profession. So it took 3.5 years to convince them that it was. So the American Music Apprenticeship Program under our UNESCO designation is the first time in American history the Department of Labor recognizes musicians as an apprenticeship, and we have started the first American apprenticeship program to replenish that history and to make certain that we as a country remember the roots of all indigenous music. So that's going to be very important to us as we grow internationally. So
absolutely,
I'm really excited about what's going on.
And I know you've spent quite a bit of time at our Hotel Metropolitan.
Oh my!
Last time you were here,
that's a goosebumpy situation because when the movie Green Book came out, that's something I've been studying for 35 years. And when finally someone recognized that not only was this a great story, the rest of the nation, actually, the travel professionals of color and various consultants like myself are actually going around and finding out across the nation, are these places still in existence? If those that are, there's a big preservation move from some of us to establish Route 66 and them as World Heritage Sites. So everybody who's alongside of that, I have to say, in my travels in the United States and the many things that I've done, particularly on the Underground Railroad and various things like that, Paducah has got to be the #1 place where we would begin the process of going out into the rest of the country because of the Metropolitan.
Wow.
And because of what it means to the rest of the world, particularly, you can make a call to Tina Turner. She's in Switzerland. Say, hey, how'd you like your room at the Metropolitan? And see if that's not a response that actually happens like that. So I'm very excited about coming back and seeing that she's still there, the preservation is still going on, and there's lots of connections we can make.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being
singer,
here.
aren't you?
Yes, he is.
You can break out at any minute.
Are you a singer?
They made me sing.
We did.
You have such a beautiful speaking voice. I figured you
They
sang.
made me do it.
Out there in the atrium, I think, is where some of it happened.
Yeah, they got better singers than me in Kansas City. Trust. Trust me. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Okay.
I would just say the Chiefs were the best team.
Whoa. You got 2 supporters in the room. Oh, that's great. All right. I lost my place in the agenda. All right, we have a resolution that I have, actually, concerning a very interesting project. And Mark, are you here? Excellent. I'll read it if you don't mind giving us some background. I move that a resolution entitled "A Resolution Adopted Jointly by the City of Paducah, Kentucky and the McCracken County Fiscal Court, stating shared support of both entities in the Tennessee RiverLine Pilot Community Project and the shared intent of both entities to complete an application for participation in the project to be adopted." Hi.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I've only been working on this project for a very short time. I was introduced to it by Julie Harris from the River Discovery Museum. And Julie, I found out, has been working with the University of Tennessee folks for about the last 4 years on this project. So I'm going to let the one who knows what's going on tell you what about it.
Thank you for that opportunity, and I'm not going to take much time. This is a really fascinating project that I've been a part of and has the potential to reap lifetime benefits for Paducah. It is basically a continuous system of multimodal trail experiences along the 652-mile Tennessee River, and will reap both tourism, economic and recreational benefits for the entire region. And so the project is asking for communities along the river to apply to be a pilot community, which in and of itself opens up lots of doors, and there's not really a financial commitment, which makes it even more appealing. And so we hope that you all will pass this.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So when we say that we're going to apply and we say, yes, we want to be a pilot community, are we actually proposing a group of programs around that? Or are we just saying yes and then we come to the table and then that happens?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I love, they've sent a sticker. And they have this really cool sticker that says the Tennessee RiverLine. It has Paducah and Knoxville. Isn't that what it is, the connection?
We went through a very lengthy process, first to come up with our name, and then we came up with the logo, and some students at University of Tennessee actually presented us a wide array of choices, and of course the ones that had Paducah's name in them had the greatest appeal, and so I was really excited about that. And fortunately, everybody else thought that that was the one that made the most sense too. So that's really nice that our name's in the logo.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for representing us, and thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yes, yes,
yep.
exciting.
Very
Exciting. All right, anyone have any comments they want to make before we vote? No. All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. Commissioner McElroy.
Right. Let's get the right one. I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce and adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance approving an addendum to the agreement for demolition services with Danny Cope and Sons Excavating, LLC, for emergency demolition services at the Kresge building located at 316, 318, and 320 Broadway, authorizing the mayor to execute the addendum and declaring an emergency to exist. This ordinance is summarized as follows. In this emergency ordinance, the City of Paducah approves an addendum to the agreement for demolition services with Danny Cope and Sons Excavating, LLC, to allow for periodic payments throughout the demolition project, so long as the total amount paid does not exceed the amount approved by the City Commission in the original demolition agreement and approved change orders.
Second.
City Manager, do you want to make any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is basically just as the ordinance states, allows us to pay a partial pay to Danny Cope and Sons for work rendered up to date. He did submit a payment request. I believe it was $80,000. What he's trying to do is get money back into his coffers so he can pay his steel provider.
Any questions? Comments? No? All right, call roll, please.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. Commissioner Watkins.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance approving the final report of the Paducah Planning Commission on the proposed final subdivision for property located at 319 Bleach Road, accepting the dedication of right-of-way, accepting public utility easements, and authorizing the mayor to subscribe a certificate of approval on the plat. This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the City of Paducah does hereby approve the final report of the Paducah Planning Commission respecting the proposed final subdivision of property of Ridgewood Villas Condominiums, Phase 2 for property located at 319 Bleach Road, and accepting the dedication of right-of-way and easements. In addition, the City of Paducah hereby accepts an updated letter of credit in an amount of $100,000 and authorizes the mayor to subscribe a certificate of approval on the plat.
Second.
Any comment, questions? No? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. Commissioner Abraham.
That's me.
Oh, Commissioner Wilson.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance approving contract amendment number 1 with Markham Engineering, LLC, for a price increase to the amount of $59,500 for additional services for the City Hall Phase 1 project. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah approves contract amendment number 1 with Markham Engineering for an overall price increase in the amount of $59,500 for additional services for the City Hall Phase 1 project, henceforth increasing the total contract price to $396,500, and authorizes the mayor to execute the contract amendment.
Second.
Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy,
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. Commissioner Abraham.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance approving a change order to the agreement for demolition services with Danny Cope and Sons Excavating LLC relating to the Kresge building located at 316 and 318, also 320 Broadway, in the amount of $14,160. The ratifying the mayor's execution of said change order. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah approves the change order number 1 to the demolition services agreement with Danny Cope and Son Excavating for an overall price increase in the amount of $14,160 for services related to additional brackets for bracing for the Kresge demolition project, increasing the total contract price to $587,160, and ratifies the mayor's execution of said change order.
Second.
Second.
Any comment, discussion? No? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy,
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. All right, we're going to move into introductions. I'm going to call Mr. Robertson up to the podium if that's okay, and we'll get Commissioner McElroy to read the motion.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 2001-10-6420, ordinance number 2003-3-6631, ordinance number 2009-11-7629, ordinance number 2009-11-7630, and ordinance 2010-6-7692. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The Commissioners of Waterworks have determined it is necessary to update the rates and rate structure for Paducah Waterworks. In order to most effectively achieve these goals, Paducah Waterworks will repeal all previous water rate ordinances. Subsequent to the passage of this ordinance, the city shall enact an ordinance which will ordain the applicable water rates and fees.
Second.
Hi there. Welcome.
Afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I have with me Tillman Burnett. He's our office manager, controller, and he's going to help me get through this. We're going to do a real short presentation. We're going to talk about the background of Paducah Water. You know, most of you know who we are, but we're kind of quiet and out of the way. Our financial position, talk about some issues we need to address, and then how we intend to address those. And if I could just figure this out. A little bit of background. We were formed by investors in 1885 and then purchased by the city in 1930. The city had two choices: make us a department of the city or set us up as to be governed by a Board of Commissioners, which was the choice they made. So we're governed by 6 residents who are both registered voters and customers, along with 1 ex officio member. And in this case, it's Mr. Watkins. We've been given the general power to control and manage the waterworks, with the exception of lowering and raising rates, and that's why we're here today. And we want to make that clear to both the public and the commission. We provide monthly financial statements to the commission, and we also provide an annual audit. A little bit about how big we are, how small we are. We serve most of McCracken County either as retail or wholesale. There's small portions of Graves and Marshall counties, just Possum Tribe and Melbourne. The next line item, 51 employees. We had that same number in 1976. Why is that significant? In 1976, we covered an area of about 20 square miles, and we had 13,000 customers. Today, with the same number of employees, we have 27,000 customers and about 140 square miles of area, so we're much larger. Annual budget about $11.5 million, and as far as physical facilities or treatment plants, about 20 million gallons a day. Built in 1984, everybody calls it the new plant, but the new plant's now 35 years old. 631 miles of main, dating from 1886 to present, and we still have mains that old in the system. About 4,300 valves, 9,000 fire hydrants, over 27,000 meters. We serve almost 66,000 people in our community. 7 storage tanks and 5 pump stations. Our budget, again, our budget's about $11.5 million. Operating expenses, about $7.7 million, and that's labor, chemicals, electricity, insurance, all the things you need to run any business. Net recurring capital and debt service, and that's mostly 2 Kentucky Infrastructure Authority loans of about $10 million. And then we have something called an expansion and replacement fee. It generates about $2.5 million, and that was enacted in 2010, and that was to allow us to begin to address the aging infrastructure in our community. Everybody sees that in the papers, everybody sees it in the news. Well, I'd like to say our community has given us the resources to start to address that. Remaining operating funds are about $380,000, and it's in red because I want you to remember that. And with that money, we have to replace our fleet, replace meters, maintain our water tanks, do department capitals, pump and drive replacements, and all the other miscellaneous stuff that we do. I want to go back to that $2.5 million capital replacement fee. Since it was enacted in 2010 and it was phased in over 3 years, we've completed 87 projects ranging from little small $9,000 projects all the way up to about $7.4 million. We spent a total of over $25.5 million while borrowing only $10 million. And we got a balance of $9 million. We've already paid $1 million back. We've installed over 200,000 feet of pipe. That's about 38 miles. It's significant. We replaced almost all the major equipment in the water plant, the new water plant everybody refers to. But unfortunately, we estimate there's still about $100 million worth of water main to replace in the next 40 to 50 years. So while we've got a good start, we've still got a lot to do. And now Tim is going to help me here.
I'm going to go back 2 slides. How do you go back 2 slides? One more. Back. Okay. You see remaining operating funds of $384,300. That number is, as soon as 8-9 years ago, was over $1 million. So you can see that our pie has shrunk over the last 8 or 9 years. And now go forward. All right. So why have our operating funds dropped? Well, it's 4 main reasons. We had a violation for disinfectant byproduct regulation about 3 years ago. We spent a lot of time and money figuring out how to meet that regulation that a lot of utilities in Kentucky are having trouble with. So we spend about $150,000 to $200,000 annually making sure that we meet that regulation. Annual water sales. You can see this is about a 20-year chart. Through the 90s, we actually increased water sales about 1% per year. Around 2000, early 2000s, it flattened out. And then over the last 10 to 15 years, water sales have decreased significantly. Why does that happen? Well, it's an industry-wide issue. It's not just a Paducah issue, and it's because households use less water now. They've got more efficient appliances, more efficient shower heads, more efficient toilets. And so because of that, water use per household has shrunk. But the issue is that most of our costs are fixed. A very small portion of our costs are variable, which creates an issue for us. The third reason is electricity costs having exceeded inflation by over $2 million for the 10-year period. You can see the bottom line of the chart is, the bottom black line of the chart is inflation. The top red line is our electricity costs. You can see from 2011 until about 2014, our power costs increased 40%. The reason for that was because of the issue where Paducah Power left TVA and began creating their own power, and the creation of the power cost adjustments. Now, since 2014, electricity costs have flattened, but just in the last 2 quarters with the raises Paducah Power has installed, our costs have gone up another $20,000. So that's we use a lot of power to produce the water. And then finally, the fourth item is retirement costs has exceeded inflation by over $1 million for the 10 years. And now this is an issue that you all are very familiar with. In 2010, when we instituted the capital replacement fee and the mixed inflation rate, we believe we had another few years of our retirement costs going up, and then we were led to believe that that would begin to go down. Well, it hasn't. And as you can see, the red line toward the right of the chart, it's gone up significantly over the last 4 years, and that $660,000 in another 3 years will actually be about $900,000 a year. And so, again, that's the fourth reason. Go back to the first one now. One more. So finally, the last statement, and this is where the rubber meets the road. Our annual mixed inflation rate increases that we put into effect in 2010 were intended to keep our rates up with inflation. Maybe one of these items we could have dealt with, but having all four of us hit us over the last 10 years, that's why we're here, is because our operating costs have shrunk.
So going back to that additional revenue which we generate at the end of all of other expenses out of $383,000 which we had left, these are the things we really need to fund out of it. We have fleet replacement, which is just a big piece of equipment. If you pick up trucks, department capital, computers, software, fixing buildings, fixing streets, replacing step pumps, motor and drives, emergency main replacements. I like to say that's when Rick Murphy calls me and tells me he forgot to tell me he has a project and I have to do it. It's not always him, but sometimes it is. Water tank maintenance is just a part of business. And the purple line item there, I really want to talk a little bit about. It's lead service line inventory and replacement. And I'll show you a little bit more, but Paducah has lead service lines. Most of the public didn't know anything about it until Flint, Michigan came along. Flint, Michigan changed their water source, did not address corrosion control, and therefore lead was released into their customers' homes. I want to first say we don't have that problem here. We have been addressing corrosion control for decades with a blend of polyorthophosphate, which they could have easily done and not had their problem too. But nevertheless, we know that lead service lines need to go. They're not good. That's all we can say about them. And then again, we say the pension increase. So with that $380,000 we need to fund $1.8 million worth of needs. So we're a little bit in arrears here. So let's talk about lead service lines before we talk about money. The lines that are in blue are lines that were constructed prior to 1930. And as you can see, that's mostly just the center portion of the city headed out toward Fountain Avenue and a little bit out toward Paxton Park and a little bit out toward the other park. The lines in blue are lines that are 1930 or older that may potentially have lead service lines. And based on our inventory, we know we've got just slightly less than 3,600 meters that might be served by lead. So what we'd like to do is determine if we have them and start a program to get rid of them. Come on, work with me here. So how do we do that? Unfortunately, there's no neat technology that says you can walk by it and wave a wand and go, this one's lead and this one's not. The whole country's facing this issue, and the only way to do it is to dig it up. If it's in the grass, we use a vacuum excavator, we vacuum down, we see it. If it's not, and most of these are not because they're in the older part of the city, you have to make a hole in the street. Sorry, Rick. And in this case, this is at the corner of 6th and Madison, and there's a lead service line there. And anytime we find them, we go ahead and replace them. So you dig a bigger hole because now you've got to replace it. And what I want to point out, if you look at the middle picture there, there's a little yellow handle right there and a small hole about this big. This particular residence or building had 2 meters side by side. One was lead, one was not lead. No way to predict, no way to guess. So while we're there, we go ahead and replace the one. Okay, so what we plan to do is over a 10-year period, identify or at least evaluate all 3,600 or so of those meters and services, and if they're lead, get them replaced. It'll take about that long. We'll do a pretty significant public education program to let them know what's coming on, because this could scare you or it cannot scare you. But anyway, we will go to the effort to educate our to our customers that may potentially have lead service lines, and we will give them very detailed instructions on what we're going to do and how that impacts them. So, to raise money, we have proposed a couple of changes. First, I want you to focus on the first 2 bullet items. We have an increasing block rate structure, And if you look at the left under where it says consumption amount, you'll see we have all these different rate blocks. And the more water you use, the cheaper we get. And if you look all over 1 million gallons, it says $1.58 per thousand. Well, right now, our average cost to provide service is about $2 a thousand. So right now, all the smaller users are subsidizing the big users, and we'd like to correct that. And the way we'd like to correct that is by doing away with that rate block. So if you use over half a million a month, you fall under that rate structure. But we're not proposing to generate any revenue by doing that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the revenue generated by collapsing that larger block and give it to the very first block, and that's the customers who use 0 to 1,500 gallons. So if you look on the charge per 1,000 gallons under existing, it's currently $4.79 a thousand, and we would collapse the last rate block and we'll give those savings to the line item on the right, what's proposed, and so that first rate block goes down to $4.62 a thousand. That's to make our rates more fair. Okay. The next blocks are about how do we generate enough revenue to do the things we want to do and address those issues. What we're proposing is to add a monthly charge of $2 to each customer. And everybody here probably has a Paducah Power bill, an Atmos bill, all the other bills. There's a customer charge on there. We're proposing just $2. Most of those are $14, $12, $20 in that range. We're proposing on year one to add $2 to each customer. That generates about $660,000, $670,000 annually. The second year, add $1 more per month, and the third year, add $1 more per month. It doesn't quite generate the money we want, but we figure it's our responsibility to find the savings somewhere else. So what does that do? Does that make us competitive? What does that do to our rates? That's what you want to know. So we've compared these to other utilities who we feel are responsible and are well operated like us. We chose us, Bowling Green, a similar sized community. We're always compared to Bowling Green. Kentucky American, which is Lexington, Northern Kentucky, Louisville Water, the largest utility in the state, and then Jackson, Tennessee. For a 5/8" meter using 2,000 gallons a month, and that might be just a couple of people. You can see our rates, even after adding $2 a month, it would still be the lowest of all those utilities. For a 5/8" meter with 5,000 gallons a month, and that's a full-blown family who uses a bunch of water, we're still the lowest rate with the exception of Louisville Water, and they've kind of got a goofy structure that gives water to the lower levels cheap, and then they shoot up dramatically. And then last but not least, small business using 50,000 gallons a month, you can see we're still very competitive. This is my John Hodge slide. A company called Cannon & Cannon does a biannual water rate survey, and then they publish this. And what you see in the green is every one of those little vertical lines is the cost for 5,000 gallons for utility in Kentucky. You kind of throw away the ones on the far left is either they just got a few customers on a little well, and you throw away the ones on the far right because they're obviously not very well run. And you see where we are. Our existing cost for 5,000 gallons is $25.68, and as proposed, $27.51. I've also added some other black lines in there so that we can show where we fall with, as compared to other utilities. The first one to the right of where it says Paducah Water existing is the Louisville Water Company. The next one is Owensboro Municipal Utilities, another community we get compared to day in and day out. Next to that is Bowling Green Municipal Utilities. You can see they're to the right of us. Next to that is Hopkinsville. Again, all communities we get compared to over and over. Monthly average for the whole state is right in the middle, and then followed by Kentucky American. They're a private utility. I like to tell people that's probably what water really ought to cost. And then last but not least, Northern Kentucky. So you can see, as it is, we're the lowest of all those people. We're in the first quartile of all the rates in Kentucky, and even after increase, we've just barely bumped a little to the right. Come on here now. So what will we be able to accomplish with this? First, we'll restore adequate operating funds. With the first change we propose, we'll adjust rates toward true cost of service approach, or what I like to say is a more fair approach. We'll eliminate all lead service lines in our distribution system. That's something the city can be proud of. You know, it may not mean much to you, but in my business, it is a significant undertaking. We can go to 30-day meter reads for all customers. Right now, many customers, their meters are only read every 60 days, and we give you something called a split billing, and if you ever have a problem, it's just almost impossible to explain to you what we've done. So this would allow us to go to 30-day reads. With the installation of advanced metering infrastructure, that will allow our customers to both view and manage their water usage. I think everybody now, the electric utility already offers that. You can pull up and see what you used every day. You can judge whether something's right or something wrong, and this will give you the same ability with water. It'll also allow us long-term to eliminate 4 employees. We'll do that through attrition, we'll do that through promotions, but in the end, that allows us to cut our head count by 4 people and provide better service. So, questions?
Questions? Comments? Is the 5,000 gallons like a typical household? How can we connect?
No, 5,000 used to be a typical household, but it kind of falls into what Tillman said when he started, and that is people use much less water. I think a typical household might be more 3,500 gallons a month to about 4,000 a month.
But still what the industry uses as their benchmark, though, for a typical family.
Okay.
So,
and the other question was noticing that you're raising the rates on the higher users, that tends to kind of perk an economic development question. So can you address that and the flexibility you have there and how you approach that?
Yes. In our ordinance, we are allowed to negotiate any industrial customer that comes in or any economic development prospect that comes in who would use more than 1 million gallons a month, we're allowed to negotiate a rate with them, once again with the approval of the commission, because you approve our rates. So we have the flexibility, if needed, to negotiate with an industrial prospect. But with the cost of service at $2 per 1,000, you have to decide if you want the rest of the customers to subsidize them.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's a good point.
This is the first increase since 2010.
Yes, we do little inflation increases yearly, but this is the first of any significance yet.
And your board voted to approve it and to bring it to us?
Yes, unanimously.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Watkins?
I've got to say this. One of the issues is you have lower water usage per person. And maybe nationally we need to have an educational campaign. I know that NBC News did a survey a little while back that showed that 50% of men did not wash their hands after using the restroom, which is kind of disgusting to think about. And working out at the college for nearly 30 years, probably that percentage don't flush the urinal when they finish either. So maybe we need an educational campaign.
Using water? Use more water?
Yeah, use more water.
Drink
Wash your
more
hands
milk,
after
use
you
more
pee and flush the urinal. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Well, on that note, I'm trying to do the math of who I should shake hands with today or not. I think I'll restrain myself.
Half of them you don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? So we're going to leave this one open for the discussion. Then the next one's going to be to introduce the actual approval of that. So we're repealing this the first time, and then we'll move on for that. But if we don't have any other questions, thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate your time and effort. All right, Commissioner Watkins, you have the next motion regarding the Paducah water rates.
All righty. I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Establishing New Water Rates and Charges for Water Provided by the Paducah Water Works to its Customers." This ordinance is summarized as follows. Paducah Water Works has experienced an increase in their operating costs while also seeing an overall decrease in water sales per customer. Paducah Water Works has adopted plans to eliminate all lead service lines in their distribution systems. The Commissioners of Water Works have the full authority to change the water rates and fees. In order to combat these events, to facilitate the necessary changes, and to accurately account for the cost of providing service to its customers, the Commissioners of Water Works have determined it is necessary to change the water rates and charges for their customers. The current rate schedule, minimum monthly charges, fire protection fees, connection charges, and capital replacement and expansion fees for Paducah Water Works are available online at www.pwwky.com upward slope rates fees upward slope. Additionally, these fees and charges are on file and available at the Paducah Water Works office. The effective date for each is stated in the ordinance. Any rate or fee changes which are implemented by Paducah Water Works will be reflected in the rates and fees posted online and in the file at the Paducah Water Works office. The Commissioners of Water Works will review the fees and charges annually and may authorize adjustments. Paducah Water Works has the authority to implement a flat charge per customer in addition to the other applicable fees which have been charged in the past. This flat charge per customer will become effective July 1, 2019. This charge will increase annually. This ordinance will specify the methodology for updating water rates in the future in order to cover inflation-based price increases.
Second.
Any more discussion on this issue? No? All right, Commissioner Wilson.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 46, Fire Prevention and Protection, Sections 46-4 to 46-30 and 46-34 of the Code of Ordinances to the City of Paducah, Kentucky. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah hereby amends Sections 46-40 to 46-30 and 46-34 of the Paducah Code of Ordinances to create a comprehensive addressing standard for properties and buildings in the City of Paducah and provides authority for the administration, enforcement, and amendment thereof. The objective of the addressing standard is to establish an efficient, uniform, and intuitive identification system of parcels and buildings for emergency response services and the general public. The amendment to Section 46-13, which will be published in full accordance with KRS 86A.060, provides that a request for an address change is subject to a fee of $100.
Need a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, City Manager. You kind of highlighted it for me right there, Commissioner Wilson, about the standardization for agencies to respond. That's kind of what it's all about. But where this came from is the software system that we've been implementing, the Munis system that you've heard a lot of talk about. One of the pieces that we had to do was the central property piece, and that was take all the addresses out of our old system and put it into the new. Well, we found a mess. Is what we found. All 17,000 plus addresses had to be touched, and what we found were we had everything from the left to the right in terms of how an address was captured. We had multiple entries. Some had avenue AVE, some had avenue spelled out, some had avenue as AV. So we realized that we needed a standard for those addresses to follow, for every department to follow, because everybody was doing it a little bit differently here inside the city. Chad Clark and others, Chad led that effort, did extensive research on producing an address standard, which is one of the things that you see as an attachment to this, a policy for us to have in place for an address to be captured, how it's to be entered, and for us how to do suites, how to do apartments, and just how to give an address in general. The second piece of this is moving the address responsibility from the engineering department to the fire department. And that's another thing that we found in the midst of going through this process. The engineering department gets an address when they're doing plat work. And that's when an address gets assigned doing the plat work. But they don't do the individual subdivisions of that plat. We do that. And we by far have many more of those than we do of a plat being submitted for a request for a new address. So what we did is we're going to move that responsibility to our folks downstairs for them to take over that and do that on a regular basis. And then Rick's going to still keep the responsibility for the new plats that are submitted. And that's how we worked out and divided those duties up in order to do that more efficiently and because we have to have an address in order to issue a permit. And many times that's ahead of where the plat is at Rick's office. So we think we'll gain some efficiencies in our permitting issuance that'll speed that process up so we can get that address established. And we've got clear rules and guidelines for us to follow to get that out in a standardized manner so that we can be in good place with 911 and for all the responders to know where they're going as well. I think I covered it all. Any questions?
So is it AVE or Avenue?
It's AVE.
Okay.
In all caps.
All caps.
Oh, big difference.
It even gets into that. So it's something they worked very hard on to develop over a long period of time, and we're all excited about having something in place to follow.
Thank you for your work. It sounds like very tedious, but very important
I can't
work.
take any credit for it. The staff gets it all because they did it all.
Thank you all
yes,
for that.
Very tedious.
Yeah.
Thank
Excellent. Thank you. All right, City Manager, do you have anything to report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few things. Just update the Board of Commissioners that we are, the budget process is underway. Right now, we have the departments submitting their requirements to the Finance Department. They're working through those issues now. And then we'll have some meetings here in a few weeks with the department directors, finance, and city manager's office. And then after that, we'll bring it back to members of the commission to go through those submissions. And then also we have an announcement. We're going to have the City Hall unveiling ceremony coming up in early May. May 2nd, I believe, is the day, but we'll have more information coming forth for that as well. Just be watching for that. Love to have you guys here for that. I do know there's going to be some music being sung. Just maybe not as good as Kansas City, but we're going to have some music being sung as well. And then also, just to remind the board that we do have the TIF ordinance. We'll be back for approval at our next Board of Commissioners meeting, the first meeting in April. And once that's approved, we will, or subject to approval, I should say, we'll get that application sent off to the state. So very exciting times.
Great. Any comments from the commissioners tonight?
I would just like to appeal to our citizens out there in TV land and in the room that Dogwood Trail time is coming, Quilter's time is coming, and it's a good time to get property looking at its best and trash picked up. It's ridiculous the amount of trash that is laying along some of our roads, even in our neighborhoods. I'm in a garden club that is going to tackle some of this, but it's just, if we all do our part, it's an easy job, and our community looks much better, and we're getting ready for company. So it's time to do that.
Absolutely. Anyone else? There was a few things I wanted to bring up. I guess myself and Commissioner Wilson are headed to on a trip to Spartanburg on Thursday, and Assistant City Manager Michelle Smoland. We're headed with a group of about 20 people, I think it is. Dr. Reese from the community college has spearheaded that trip. He wants us to go on an economic development. Mary Hammond is going, so we're going to kind of scout out. Oh, Laurel Black is going. The whole audience is invited now. So we're headed out there to learn a little bit more about what they've done in the Riverport. I think their economic development, their community college, their chamber. So we're excited about that. It's it's a long ride, but overnight is the Thursday to Friday. So I'm excited about that. The other thing I wanted to share with you all is, you probably know this, Commissioner Abraham and Commissioner Wilson. I guess Commissioner Abraham. I learned when I first got into office about these collaboration meetings that Mayor Paxton used to host. And I think they were monthly at one point. A lot of people came to them. I heard they turned out to be a couple hours long sometimes. Well, I took a cue from that, and I thought that was a great idea. And so last quarter, the city manager and I started with meetings around transportation, utilities. We've had Bill Robinson there, and also economic development. And so quarterly, we've been gathering a group of people to talk about what projects might be there, what issues there are, and how to solve some of those concerns. So I thought it was a great idea that Mayor Paxton started, and I wanted to bring it back. If you guys ever want to join us, please let us know. We'll make sure you know. Only one of you can come, obviously, for open meetings rules, but I think it'll be good moving forward. I also have the intention to include Judge Clymer in those as well, and he's expressed interest in coming to those meetings. And then I wanted to just take a moment, since we heard from Paducah Water tonight, just to reiterate to our community, I just keep getting reminded over and over again, every conversation we have about having to add some kind of financial burden to our citizens, and it all goes back mostly to a pension problem. And every single time it comes up, I just get more and more frustrated that us at the local level are solving for this. So I just want to appeal to our citizens to be talking with your state reps and state senators and anyone that you know in state government that we need help, we need relief, we need assistance. We're having to put this burden on our citizens, and we don't like it. I know that for sure. Bill doesn't like it, but we've got to solve for it somehow because money just doesn't fly, come out of the sky. So I just want to take that opportunity to bring that back up. It's not a fun conversation, but I think it's an important one for our community to know how it's happening. Anyone else that spur anything on? All right, we have one member of the audience tonight. Somebody we know very well is here, Mr. Randy Beeler.
By the way, Mayor, it's a lot more fun when you have more than 3 minutes. I will make it quick. I'd like to commend the city leadership for the renovation of the City Hall. It looks good, and I did have a little part of that, by the way. We've been coming here for a year and a half, and I think last meeting I gave the city a good idea to end our situation. I left a copy for you and a copy for Mr. Arndt. It's a simple proposal. The date can be changed year to year. It will eliminate the SCV from being in the parade, therefore no flag, no us. No need for a resolution. And they ask why we're fighting over the resolution. We just want to restore our dignity and our self-respect in our community. We've been a big part of this community. And by the way, one more thing before I forget my 3 minutes. The Lost Limbs project, I have a brother that lost his leg in a motorcycle wreck. Bottom part of his leg cost $20,000. These people need all the help they can get financially and supportive. I guess that's really all I got to say. I hope y'all talk. Did you look at it, Ms. Harless?
I have glanced over it, yes. And I know the city manager said that he's having conversations one-on-one with the commissioners about it.
April is Confederate Heritage Month. As y'all well know, we thoroughly believe in history. Love to hear from these people back here. This was great. You know, we support the Metropolitan. It's not about any one thing. It's about history.
I'm sorry. I hear
I didn't do that.
A sound.
Hey, Chris.
Chris, I think your sound is on.
You got something playing, bud.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's pretty good. I'm used to it. Anyhow, one more thing. Mayor Harless, I've been in the building industry for 40 years. When you get ready to do your house, give me a call and I can help you through it.
Thanks.
Y'all be good.
All right. With that, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.